This is Jim Juback for Juback Asset Management video on April 17th. So you can see I've still got my wildflowers and farfalle. We had a really wacky weather day. I caught in a massive thunderstorm and the temperatures dropped 20 degrees in 2 hours, putting an end to an early spring. Now we're back to maybe March weather. Anyway, other than that, things are beautiful in Venice, and we're still in the low 60s. And hey, what could be much better? Another 10 degrees of temperature. Okay. Anyway, welcome to my YouTube video for today. If you'd like to see more of these videos, you subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's free. That way you get notification when we do our next one. We're trying for about 3 a week, not always on the same day, not always succeeding. If you want more of my free stuff, go to my free site. That's jubackpicks.com. 3 portfolios for 12 to 18 months, for dividends, and for 5 years or so, longer term. And it's free. We do about 1 or 2 posts a day, and they go straight to your email box around 8 o'clock Eastern Time. If you want more of my stuff, you can subscribe to my Juback Asset Management. That's jubackam.com site. That's got 6 portfolios, so that we've added some ETFs and added some options plays and volatility portfolio, and some really long-term portfolio for sort of millennials. If you got a lot of time but not a lot of money, so you can take a little more risk and wait for stuff to materialize. Anyway, you can find links to all those down below. And speaking of free, I've moved to Venice, moved in September of 2023. I have trouble remembering what year it is sometimes. And so we also started a Substack with my wife, and it's called We Moved to Italy, and that's free. So go to Substack, We Moved to Italy, follow our adventures, and comment. We'd love to hear from you. Okay, thanks very much. For today's topic, we're going to look at how to figure out what the Fed is going to do, and the title, I guess, could be, want to know what the Fed is doing? Look at the calendar. Or maybe want to know what the Fed is going to do? Look at the calendar. And here's why. The Fed is contemplating a major policy shift. It will go from holding rates steady to cutting rates. That's a big, big deal. The Fed in recent days, including Jerome Powell, has said not in any hurry to do that. Led to Wall Street speculation that maybe we're not going to get, remember at the beginning of 2024, people were talking about 5 cuts in 2024. Now they're talking about maybe none. There are actually people out there talking about a rate hike in 2024. So incredible shift in speculation. But one of the things to remember about the Fed is the Fed doesn't like to do policy shifts without doing a lot of advance notice. And it's unlikely to do a policy shift of this magnitude at a meeting that doesn't have one of its quarterly economic updates. Not every meeting does, and this is why I think it's important to look at the calendar. The next meeting is on March. Next meeting, this is already April, so the next meeting is May 1st, and the market has pretty much decided, not going to be anything. So the odds, according to the CME Fedwatch, which look at prices in the Fed funds futures market to predict Fed moves, basically saying no cut, 98.1% chance of no cut at the May 1 meeting. June, which was the sense for a while that was likely to be the meeting, we're now up to 84.8% no cut. The June meeting is important because that's the next dot plot. The dot plot happens every 3 months. The Fed updates its projections for interest rates at the end of the year and for 2025, for GDP growth, for inflation growth. So it's a way to them not only to just announce something, but then to put a lot of flesh on the bones of that announcement. So dot plot meetings are the preferred time for the Fed to do a major policy shift. So that would be June 12th. And I think that's now increasingly seen as unlikely because the Fed has been saying, hey, we're not in any hurry. The data still doesn't tell us whether inflation is on a reliable path down to 2%. We're looking at about 3.5, 3.8% in core inflation, too high. So that's June. June now looks out of the running. Next meeting would be July. The problem with the July meeting, July 31st, is there's no dot plot. So the Fed would have to basically make a big announcement and then be able to say nothing but the press conference, wouldn't be able to do economic updates. So I think July 31st is an unlikely meeting. So if we don't do May, we don't do June, we don't do July, there's no August meeting, so the next chance really is September. And that's the September 18th meeting, which has a dot plot. And right now, it looks like the market is saying, hey, we're going to see a cut in September. The odds of no cut are down to about 32.7%. So do the inverse of that. So the 68% chance of a cut of one size or another. So I'd say September is now looking very likely because of A, sentiment, B, which is important to the Fed. The Fed does not like to surprise the market, so the fact that the market is thinking September means that either the Fed will have to talk them out of that or actually go through with September. September is a dot plot. My guess is September is the first cut. There's no dot plot for November. There's no Fed meeting in October. So if the Fed is going to do a second rate cut in 2024, they pretty much have to move in September. And then the next move would be at the December 18th meeting, which has a dot plot. And so that would be, so if you're looking for two cuts in 2024, September, December would be a good bet. If we don't see a September cut, it's unlikely, there's no way to get two cuts in 2024. So that's really what we're looking at. That's how the calendar is sort of informing my view. I think we're going to talk about this a lot for the next few months, but we're not going to resolve it because I don't think the Fed will move in July, can't move in August. So September, it looks like the most likely move. And then I think it's to move in September and then to move again in December would be really aggressive unless inflation data gets to be really, really firm in terms of a move to 2%. I don't see the Fed doing that. So I think one cut in 2024 is most likely because of the calendar, because of big shift, and so that's what I'd be looking for. If you found this useful, either for humor or what else, subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's free. That way you get notification when we do our next one. If you want more of my free stuff, you can go to drastic.com. That has 3 portfolios for 12 to 18 months, dividends, and 5 years longer term plays. You can subscribe to my dbackam.com. That has 6 portfolios, so those 3 plus an ETF portfolio, a volatility portfolio where we use some options, and then a really long term, so beyond 5 years portfolio. So those would be there, and you can find links to all those down below. We'd love to have you subscribe to the free or the whatever version. If you subscribe to either the free or the paid version, you automatically get all of the posts of the day straight to your your email box at 5 o'clock every day. If you subscribe to the paid site, 8 o'clock every day. If you subscribe to the unpaid site, the free site. Also, I moved to Lock, Stock, and Caboodle to Italy in September 2023. And I've started a Substack to sort of follow our adventures. That's free. Go to Substack. We moved to Italy.com. You can find a link to that down below too. Thanks very much for watching.